How's it going today, guys? Jeremy back here from My Music Mastery. So today, as the title suggests, I'm going to be showing you how you can write your own chord progressions. You know, I can remember back when I first started, and I didn't even know what a chord was, let alone a chord progression. So if you don't know how to write a chord progression out, don't feel bad. I'm going to clear this up for you today in this video. And like I said, I didn't even know what a chord was at one point as a musician. Now the first thing that we're going to cover in this video, just dive right into it, is going to be the major chord progression, or the chord progression for the major scale rather. Now just for simplicity's sake, we're going to be using the key of C major because there aren't any sharps or flats in this key. Now when you're thinking in terms of the major key and you're writing out a chord progression in it, you have to understand what the order of major chords and minor chords are. Now, if we're just going off of the basis of what the key signature is and what the scale is, we've got a C, we've got a D, got an E, F, got a G, a B, and then a C. Now the order of the whole steps and half steps for the major key, this is important to understand as well. It's going to be a whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half step. Now because of what the scale is and what notes are in the key of C major, the order of major chords and minor chords are this. So we've got a 1 chord which is going to be major. It's going to be C major. Next we've got a 2 chord which is going to be minor. It's going to be a D minor chord. Okay. Then we've got an E minor chord, which is the 3 chord. 3 is minor in the key of, or in a major key. Okay. Then we've got the 4 chord, which is the F. That's going to be a major. Then we've got the 5 chord, which is also called the dominant. This is going to be a G major. Then we've got the 6, which goes back to minor. This is going to be A minor. And then the 7 chord is always going to be diminished. Now we're going to be completely ignoring the diminished chord in this video. It's a little bit too complex for what we're talking about in this video. So now when we're writing our own chord progressions and maybe we're just starting out, we don't really know what to start off with, the number 1 chord that you can play for sure to start off your chord progressions is the 1 chord. Now this is because it's the root of the scale. Let's just go ahead and play a C chord here. Now where does the C chord want to go? Well, the 1 chord in a major key can always go wherever it wants. No matter what, it can always go to whatever chord you want to go to next. Let's say that I want to go to a minor 2 here. Okay, C, pretty simple, right? Now where does the progression want to go after the D minor chord? Well, I'll go ahead and pull up my chord progression flowchart for you. The D minor chord, the 2 chord, generally will want to go to either the 4 chord or the 5 chord. Now of course you can have it go to some other places as well, but this is a sure, if you're looking for an easy chord progression to write that sounds good and you know it's going to sound good, I would say either go to the 4 chord or the 5 chord. So now just to demonstrate this, let's go ahead and go from the C chord to the D minor to the F. So you can see how that kind of resolves from the D up to the F, right? So now we're at the 4 chord. Where do we want to go next? Well, one sure place that you can go, no matter what, is going to be the 5 chord. In this case, it's going to be a G. So let's go ahead and play through this chord progression again and add in the G chord this time. We're going to start with C, to D, go to F, and then we're going to go to a G. And then you can hear it naturally wants to resolve to a C. Right? So now you can see that once you really dive into this, it's not as difficult as you might think. You're really just playing chords and seeing how they resolve from one to the other. So now that we've got a whole chord progression written, let's go ahead and add some rhythm to it, and we can hear it in its true, how we really want to hear it, right? So now let's talk a little bit about the minor chord progression. Now, before we get started on this, I want to say that most of the songs that you're probably going to write are going to be in the major key, and this is simply because the minor chord progression from a very basic standpoint with when you're first starting off, there's not as many things that you can do with the minor chord progression. So now with that being said, for the minor chord progression, we're going to be using the key of A, which is going to be the relative minor to C major. This simply means that it has the same exact key signature as the C major scale. Now when you're using a minor key, you really can use the same chord progressions that we were writing in the C major scale, but use the minor chords instead. But as you'll see, there are some differences in why not many people use this chord progression. Now let's get into what the whole steps and half steps are of this scale. So the root is going to be the A. From there we've got a whole step to B. Then we've got a half step to a C natural. Then we've got a whole step to a D. Then we've got a whole step to an E. Then we've got a half step to an F. And then we've got a whole step to a G. And then we've got the half step to the A. So one last time, the order of whole steps and half steps is whole, half, whole, whole, half, whole, whole. So now for the order of the major chords and the minor chords, we're going to start off with the one chord, which is going to be an A minor chord. Then we've got for the two chord, this is actually going to be diminished, which would be B diminished. Now we're going to ignore this chord because we're not going to use it because it's diminished. Like I said, in the major progression, generally when you're first starting off, you're going to ignore the diminished chords. So now moving on, we've got the 3 chord, which is going to be major. This is going to be C major. Then we've got the 4 chord, which is going to be minor. We've got D minor. Then for the 5, now you might be expecting, if you're looking at the notes in the A major scale or in the A minor scale versus the C major scale, you may be expecting the 5 chord to be minor. And this is because you've got a G natural in the key of A minor, right? Well, in the minor key, we actually sharp the 7th scale degree. And this is because if we didn't, then we would have a minor sounding 5. And the 5 is supposed to be dominant sounding. It's supposed to be major. This is supposed to tell us when the chord progression is over or when it's going to switch to something else. So for that reason, we've got a G sharp in the key of A minor. And we've got an E major chord. So then moving on, we've got the 6th chord, which is going to be major. This is going to be F major. So now for the 7th chord, we're going to ignore this one again. And it's because, as I told you with the 5 chord, we raised the 7th scale degree, which makes it a G sharp diminished chord. So that pretty much wraps it up for what we have as far as chords in the minor scale. Now you probably noticed that because we removed the 2 diminished chords in the minor scale, we're left with 5 chords. Now because we only have 5 chords, that leaves us with a few limited options on what we can do. So starting off, we're going to go with an A minor chord. Okay. Now from there we're going to go to the major 6, which is going to be an F chord. Okay. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to a minor 4 chord, which is going to be the D minor. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the 5 chord, which is going to be E major. And then we're going to go back to the 1 chord, which is A minor. So now going through one bar at a time, it's going to sound like this. It's a pretty good sounding progression, right? And it's essentially the same thing that we did before, but rather than going to the minor 2, like we did in the major scale, this time we're going to a major 6 chord, which is, of course, the F major. So now let's go ahead and add some rhythm to it. So you can really hear the direction of the song, right? It's a good progression that you can throw into maybe you're writing a sad love song or something like that. A song about despair or something like that. Maybe you want to express a ton of emotion to someone, and this would be a good chord progression for something like that, right? Alright guys, now that pretty much wraps it up for this video. Now before I let you go, I want to remind you of what I said at the beginning of this video. If you remember, I said that when I first started off wanting to write my own music, I didn't know what a chord was even, let alone what a chord progression was. Now with what I just shared with you, I understand that you might be feeling a little bit discouraged. Maybe you understand the concept and the theory of what I just shared with you, but putting it into practice is something completely different. See, I understand what you're going through right now and what you're feeling, and that's why I went ahead and I put together what I call my Smash Hit Secrets PDF. Now if you're wondering what my Smash Hit Secrets PDF is, essentially what it is I wrote out my entire songwriting process. I go through what keys to go with. I go through how to write a chord progression like we were just talking about. I even go through how to write your own lyrics. These are all things that I completely struggled with when I was first starting off writing my own music. And I wanted to give back now that I understand how to go through that process. Now you're probably listening to me explain all of this and you're asking yourself, well, what's the catch? How much do I have to pay for this? And that's why I want to let you know that I've got it down below this video in the description box, 100% free for you. All that you have to do to get this PDF is go down below this video in the description, click on the link, and I'll send it to your email inbox 100% free. Everything in that PDF is exactly what I do every single time I want to write a song. Now one last thing before I close this video out, don't forget to leave this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, and don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you're new to the channel. Anyway guys, that's it for me. Thank you again for watching this video, and we'll see you next time.